Sexual intimacy is an incredibly important aspect of marriage, and usually over our lives we're not given one clear message on the topic, rather a wide array of differing information, some that is helpful and some that is not.
So what does the Bible say? The Bible teaches that sex is to be reserved for marriage alone, and that biblical marriage is between one man and one woman. Let's return to Genesis 2:24 again. For this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they will become one flesh. Remember the order here: leaving, uniting, and then one flesh. We've already explored one flesh, meaning the joining of your whole lives together, and this is true, but the greatest expression of one flesh is within the sexual union of a husband and a wife.
So what about sex before marriage? The Bible tells us not to unite with someone physically or sexually unless you're also willing to unite with that person emotionally, personally, socially, economically, and legally. In other words, don't become physically naked and vulnerable with another person without first becoming vulnerable in every other way, which is within the covenant of marriage. To become one flesh only sexually is like trying to get a plane flying without an engine or a tail or a wing. It just doesn't work. It all needs to come together, otherwise you're setting yourself up for disaster. And you can plant regret and remorse and guilt and even hardness to the Lord into one another in a marriage if you start off without bringing it all together.
So we move on to talking about sex within marriage. What is it all about, and why is it such an important expression of love and unity? The Bible affirms that sex within marriage has at least four main purposes. Number one, for unity. As already covered, sex is the greatest expression of unity between a husband and a wife. It is where you are totally naked, totally vulnerable, giving all of yourself to the other for mutual benefit.
And number two, to produce children. Genesis 1:28 says, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth." When God designed sex as a part of a marriage relationship, He had the continuation of the human species in mind. One of the reasons God intended sex to be within a marriage relationship was because of the possible outcome of a child being conceived. And He knew that within a loving and healthy marriage, it was the best place for a child to be nurtured and raised. However, it's important to understand that having children does not complete a marriage and is not essential for a Christian married couple. Some couples choose not to have children for various reasons, while others face infertility, and this can be a great grief for them. But rather, the point to understand here is that having sex can produce children.
And number three, for meeting sexual desires and managing temptation. The Bible is a practical book and acknowledges the realities of our sexual drives. God has made us sexual beings with a sexual appetite, and sex within marriage is designed to meet these needs. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 7, while addressing the Christians living in Corinth at that time, that regular sexual intercourse is not only beneficial for their relationship, but also helps curb the temptation around them.
And number four, sex is for fun. This is the main point. The Bible is filled with poetic and powerful descriptions of sexual union between a husband and a wife. Sex is an opportunity to enjoy one another, naked and without shame, as it was in the beginning. And if you take time to read the Song of Solomon, you will see this as a whole book devoted to a description of the physical intimacy of marriage. The imagery of pleasure is obvious, and the balance of roles between the man and the woman are strong as both take the lead and both experience great joy. Also, our physical structure, how God designed us, also points to the fact that God intended sex to be pleasurable and for enjoyment. Also, sexual intimacy begins long before the bedroom, even possible in your kitchen. Your expression of sexual intimacy with each other is not just found in sexual intercourse. As you grow and learn about each other in this area, be prepared for intimacy to be present in many ways.
Before we close off this topic, we want to cover a couple of important points. Often for people who are followers of Jesus, it can be difficult to navigate the shift in understanding that before marriage, sex has been something to avoid. It may have been talked about as sinful or dirty, or not talked about at all. And suddenly you are meant to flick a switch and accept sex as celebrated and intended for pleasure, a gift from God. Even though God approves of it, there can still be a deep sense that somehow He looks away from sexual union and is disapproving. It is not sex itself that is wrong or sinful. It is the context in which it is expressed that leads to sin. God blesses the sexual union within marriage that is beneficial to both parties. And in terms of rules, if you both agree something is okay, so it is mutually beneficial, and God has said it is okay, so it's just the two of you within marriage, then you are free to enjoy each other and accept this wonderful gift.
Another common misunderstanding is that sexual impurity disappears within marriage, and when you are having sex with your spouse, that all other sexual temptation or baggage from the past will just magically vanish. This is simply not true. And as we read in Corinthians, it certainly can help, but we have an enemy who uses sexual temptation to lure us into sexual sin, and sexual sin is critically damaging to a marriage relationship. Sexual integrity is not just withholding from sex before marriage, but is also required of us throughout marriage. The marriage bed is to be kept pure.
The journey of sexual intimacy within marriage is lifelong. You will continue to learn new ways of enjoying each other, and you'll need to be sensitive to each other's needs within certain seasons of life. And ultimately, you'll need to continue to learn how best to express love and unity together, naked and without shame.